we're going to talk about cryptocurrencies. Everything you don't understand about money combined with everything you don't understand about computers.
So this is really a common theme, and he phrased it really well, even though finance is really a subset of the law. So a lot of times what people don't understand is really principles of the law. And so we're going to just start with some fundamentals, and no fundamentals would be complete with actually talking about Bitcoin. And really, if you just embrace the title of the Bitcoin white paper and think about it for some time, you probably know more than most people that I talk to on a daily basis. And we're going to break down why that is. So there's a couple of concepts that the Bitcoin white paper introduced, and there's a couple of concepts that the Bitcoin white paper didn't introduce, and we'll talk about those as well. So what it was trying to achieve was to create a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Debatable if it did it, but it did so, or tried to do so, by preventing the double spend problem and create a network of time-stamped transactions that we have become to known as a blockchain. We'll talk about that. So first, what's cash and why is it great? Cash is great because I can give it to you. I don't have it anymore. You have it. One important note with that is I typically don't give you a record how I derived at that cash, and I typically also don't show you my passport, which is something we're going to talk about more. So from a technical perspective, you will find hundreds of articles that claim that the Bitcoin white paper solved the Byzantines' general problem, which is a computing problem, which it didn't. It actually solved a particular variety of the Byzantines' general problem, or what we call Byzantine fault tolerance in the context of network systems. But it's important what it actually introduced. So the single concept introduced is really the concept of self-executing code, or usually referred to as smart contracts. As a derivative of smart contracts, it created the first digital bearer instrument, so specifically the mining reward Bitcoin. Now always spell this out, because unfortunately the Bitcoin white paper decided to call the mining reward the same it's calling the network Bitcoin, albeit I think it's good practice to differentiate it by using lowercase b for the mining reward versus uppercase B for the network itself. And Bitcoin actually, by the launch of its network, eventually introduced the first decentralized autonomous organization, a favorite topic of mine that we're going to talk about later. The entire space is plagued by a lot of unhelpful metaphors. This is one of the more helpful metaphors. This is a vending machine, as you probably notice, and a concept that Nick Szabo introduced in 1996 with a paper that he wrote on the topic of smart contracts, the building blocks for digital markets. And if you see this here, a vending machine works by you putting in a coin, or maybe it's a dollar note. You trigger the release of an object, and there's no middleman involved, and it's fairly good technology and still around today. But then obviously we have more elaborate implementations, and this is more elaborate vending machine. And as you probably notice, I put the Ethereum sign on here because even though the Bitcoin network is a smart contract platform, it is a very hard to code smart contract platform, and that's why Vitalik conceptualized the concept of Ethereum as a purpose machine for building other smart contract systems. Anchoring, and that's happening a lot, and we see this on a daily basis. There's a lot of conflations in the space where people are anchored to certain terminology. You will still hear from a lot of even VCs, but also from developers in the space, that they're either building or investing in blockchain technology. And whenever you do that, Nick, by the way, if you turn off your video, then people can see the screen better, I think. And so the problem here is the same. Yes, we will be recording this. And the problem here and the conflation here is the same thing if you were to use an internet protocol like the SMTP protocol, the voice over IP protocol, to build an application. That doesn't mean, obviously, that you're building the internet. It just means that you're using a protocol that leads to a certain outcome, but one doesn't equal the other, and blockchain technology doesn't necessarily mean that you're building a blockchain. Blockchain-based solutions, on the other hand, are a different story. And there specifically, the Bitcoin white paper actually didn't introduce blockchain technologies, combined it with a couple of other parameters, i.e. the proof of work system, because blockchain technology, so the primitive of time-stamping records and encoding them in blocks and chaining them together, was actually introduced 10 years earlier, and that is a reference made in the second footnote of the white paper. Again, everybody should read the Bitcoin white paper and just really embrace the actual inventions and the actual innovations that it introduced. Not so long ago, I think it was about a month ago, I heard Jason Calacanis say that blockchains are a particular type of databases. That couldn't be more wrong. They are the opposite of databases. And the simplest way to understand the use case for a blockchain, the blockchain lets you have control over bytes, and you can hand over this control over bytes without needing a middleman to do so, and without actually creating a record. And so there specifically, you hear also a lot that things like DLTs and so forth, distributed system, are blockchain-based solutions. They are not. Distribution doesn't mean decentralization. Decentralization requires that any participant can download the software and actually participate freely and in a censorship-resistant way, which is only guaranteed if and when and where these things are actually open source, and you can participate without a third-party allowance. And there specifically, DLTs are obviously not blockchains. And unfortunately, I was just reviewing a paper by quote-unquote CryptoDad, and he keeps using DLT as a synonym to a blockchain, and it's definitely not the same thing. It's a very important distinction to be made. Also, blockchains aren't protocols, and that's what you will hear even from people like Vitalik that claim that blockchains are protocols. They are not protocols because you have to look at them in context. So if I tell you I saw a jaguar on the street, this is the image in your mind. This is not what you have in your mind, right? So you have to look at semantics, at words, specifically in the technology sense, in context. So blockchain-based solutions exist in the context of network technologies. So they're actually making use of other protocols, of actual protocols. So they're making use of internet protocols specifically.